Good morning students. Welcome to SST So Simple tutorial. In this class, we will be revising as well as discussing important questions from this lesson, sectors of the Indian economy. We will pick some important questions and discuss them. This will automatically amount to the revision of the lesson. We have read the sectoral classification in details. On the basis of the nature of activity, we had classified the economic activities into primary, secondary and tertiary. On the basis of employment conditions, we classified the economic activities into organized and unorganized. Then, on the basis of the ownership of assets, we classified the economic activities into private and public sectors. Now, you may be asked, 1. Classify the economic sectors of economy on the basis of nature of activities. Explain with examples. 2. Economic activities, though grouped into 3 categories, are highly interdependent. Discuss, or with the example of sugarcane, explain the interdependence of all the 3 sectors of the economy. Here, you can explain the 3 sectors, primary, secondary and tertiary, and give examples from each sector. Then in the second question, you can explain the interdependence of the 3 sectors with the example of sugarcane, or if cotton is given, from cotton. These are easy questions, so I will not discuss them here. Problem comes when you are asked, describe the importance of primary sector in the Indian economy, or explain the importance of secondary sector in the Indian economy. Let me take the first question. You know what activities are included in primary sector. So you can write that it is the base of livelihood for all of us. It gives us food. It covers agriculture, dairy, fishing, forestry, which contributes to the Indian economy. You have also read about the interdependence of the sectors. So you can write it provides raw material to the secondary sector, for example jute, cotton, coal, etc. Remember the graph showing the contribution of different sectors towards GDP and employment. Now you can write that it is the largest employer in the economy. Its employment share is more than 55%. Also, this sector contributes more than 20% to the GDP of India. Thus, your answer is ready. So simple. I hope you have understood it well. Now, on the same line, you can answer the question of secondary and tertiary sector. But the question that is always important is the reason for rising importance of tertiary sector in production. Give reasons for rising importance of tertiary sector in production. Dear students, on the basis of the 3 graphs given in the book, we can say that tertiary sector is the largest producing sector in India today. It contributes maximum to the GDP. So let us see the reasons for this. Firstly, in any country, several services like hospitals, educational institutions, police stations, post offices, defense, banks, insurance, etc. are required. And in a developing country like ours, the government has to take the responsibility for the provision of these services. These are considered as basic services. So when more and more people will be employed to provide these services to the people, the share of tertiary sector in the GDP is bound to increase, right? Next. The development of agriculture and industry leads to the development of services such as transport, trade, storage and the like. So greater the development of primary and secondary sector, more will be the demand of these services. Simple. Third, now the per capita income in our country is increasing. So the income level of people is rising. Naturally, people will demand for more services like tourism, shopping, private schools, private hospitals, eating out, etc. and all of these services fall under tertiary sector. In recent years, new kinds of services are also emerging rapidly in India. You must have heard of IT-enabled services like call center services, medical transcription services, telemarketing, etc. You all must be aware of Amazon and Flipkart. All these services come under tertiary sector. In India, these services provide a wide range of career opportunities to our talented workforce. So these are few reasons for the rise of tertiary sector. Let us now see questions from organized and unorganized sector. Distinguish between the organized and the unorganized sector. This question is frequently asked as 3 marks question. To answer this question, make a table. Organized one side and unorganized other side. Then write point-wise. Many times it so happens that the points that the students make irritate the evaluators. They write in the organized sector, working hours is fixed, unorganized sector, working hours is not fixed, they are paid overtime, they are not paid overtime, they get provident fund, they don't get provident fund, and they think that they have written 3 points. These are not 3 points. In this answer, you miss the basic questions. What are organized and unorganized sectors? What are the basic differences? You must write them first. So in the table, what you are required to write is, this sector is registered by the government. Unorganized sector is not registered by the government. The terms of employment are regular in organized sector. The terms of employment are not regular in unorganized sector. Organized sector is governed by various laws such as Factories Act, Minimum Wages Act, etc. Whereas the unorganized sector is not governed by any law. Organized sector includes banks, hospitals, schools, etc. Unorganized sector includes a large number of people who are employed on their own doing small jobs, etc. Workers in organized sector get paid leave, provident fund, gratuity, etc. There is no provision of paid leave, provident fund, leave due to sickness, etc. in unorganized sector. I hope you have understood the point that I want to make. Sometimes you may be asked to write, what are the advantages of working in an organized sector? It is in this question you need to write all the facilities that you know is available in organized sector. Normally it is seen that students write broad headlines and leave it. Please take care of the word limits and explain your point properly. Don't shy away from writing. This is a common drawback among most of the students. Let me now come to another important question. How can workers be protected in the unorganized sector? By now, you must have understood why everyone wants to work in organized sector. There is lot of exploitation in the unorganized sector. So, there is need for protection and support of the workers in the unorganized sector. So, what can be done to protect them? First, let us distribute them in rural areas and urban areas. In the rural areas, who are the people coming under this sector? Landless agricultural laborers, small and marginal farmers, sharecroppers. These farmers need to be supported through adequate facility for timely delivery of seeds, agricultural inputs, credit, storage facilities and marketing outlets. In urban areas, who are there in the unorganized sector? Workers in the small scale industry, casual workers in construction, trade and transport, street vendors, head load workers, garment makers, rag pickers, etc. Small scale industry needs government aid for procuring raw materials and marketing of their goods. Government can provide cheap loans to the self-employed people. Next, the government must make concerted efforts to ensure that workers in this sector are not exploited and they earn fair wages. So government should ensure that minimum wages are paid to them. Government can fix working hours. Government can frame new laws which can provide provision for overtime, paid leave, leave due to sickness, etc. Rules of ESI, Provident Fund and other labor laws can be introduced in this sector also. Let us now come to the public and private sectors. Distinguish between public and private sectors. Give examples. Just like organized and unorganized sector, I will suggest you to make a table. Public sector on one side, private sector on the other side. This is an easy question, so do it yourself and allow me to go to another important question. Explain with suitable examples how public sector contributes to the economic development of the nation. First of all, let me talk about infrastructure. The government contributes towards the economic development of the nation through creation and expansion of infrastructure. This includes construction of roads, bridges, railways, irrigation through dams, etc. So you must make this point number 1. Okay. Creation and expansion of infrastructure. Then certain activities are meant to be supported by the government, like providing electricity to small scale industries at low prices. See, if the private sector does it, they would charge a high rate for it. Mind you, if electricity is sold at the price of generation, this would push up the cost of production of goods. Thus, many units, especially small scale units, would shut down. Therefore, the government steps in here, produces and supply electricity at rates which are affordable by these industries. I hope this point is clear to you. This is another important point. Then, a large number of activities are prime responsibility of the government. By running school and providing good quality of education, the government is trying to remove illiteracy and taking the nation forward. The government also runs hospitals and health centers to look after the health of its people. The government is also providing safe drinking water to all. It is also trying to provide housing facilities to the poor. Then, the government also supports both the farmers and the consumers. You already know that the government purchases rice and wheat from farmers at MSP, stores them in the godowns and sells to the consumers through ration shops. If you can write this much, this would be enough. Sometimes you may face questions like this. Society as a whole needs several things which the private sector will not be able to provide at a reasonable cost. Explain. So the answer here remains the same. It is just change of words. Let us now talk about unemployment. Suggest 5 measures to remove unemployment and create more employment. First, remember the story of Lakshmi in your textbook. The government can provide loans through banks at cheap rates to the small farmers to improve their irrigational facilities, like constructing a well, so that they can irrigate their land well and get 2 to 3 crops a year instead of 1. Thus, more people can be employed in the same field. You can narrate the story of Lakshmi also in short if you don't have enough stuff in your stock. Then, investing in basic agricultural infrastructure like construction of dams and canals for irrigation can lead to a lot of employment generation within the agricultural sector itself, reducing the problem of underemployment. If the government invests some money in the storage and transportation of crops or makes better rural roads so that mini trucks reach everywhere, several farmers can continue to grow and sell these crops throughout the year. This activity can produce productive employment to not just farmers but also others such as those in services like transport or trade. Besides facilities for irrigation, a small farmer also needs other inputs. But being poor, they do not afford these. So if they are provided credit at a reasonable rate of interest, they can buy seeds, fertilizers, agricultural equipments, pump sets, etc. in time and cultivate their land. Another way is to identify, promote and locate industries and services in semi-rural areas where a large number of people may be employed. For example, setting up a dal mill, opening a cold storage, starting or promoting honey collection, etc. You can also make diversification of agriculture as a point. Most of our farmers are producing only limited crops. So there is a need to diversify agriculture. Farmers should be encouraged to adopt pisciculture, horticulture, animal rearing, etc. along with cultivation of crops. Then you can add construction of school buildings and hospitals. These works can generate more employment opportunities as well as contribute to human development. Activities like tourism industries can be promoted. There is a report that says if tourism as a sector is improved, every year we can give additional employment to more than 35 lakh people. So we have touched most of the important questions. But before I close, I want to remind you that you must go through the following question once. They may come as 1 mark question in section A. What are final goods? Why are the final goods and services only counted in GDP? What are intermediate goods? What do you mean by tertiary sector? Explain the term GDP. Which organization undertakes the task of measuring GDP in India? What is underemployment? Explain with an example. Explain the meaning of disguised unemployment with the help of suitable example. Distinguish between open unemployment and disguised unemployment. Then finally, what is NREGA or what is MNREGA? What are the important features of MNREGA? Thus, students, we have covered the whole lesson. I hope you found this session useful. To encourage more such videos, please subscribe to the channel. I will be coming shortly with more chapter-wise revision through important questions. Till then, happy reading and have a nice time. Thank you.